The day human resources laughed at me, I stopped trying to be understood and started building a file. It happened in a small office with a glass door and a motivational poster that said, "People are our greatest asset." I remember that because I was sitting under it while Angela from HR explained that my complaint sounded a bit emotional. "Miriam," she said, tapping her pen against my statement, "Dennis can be intense, but call center work is intense. Maybe you are taking his management style personally." Management style. That was the polite name they gave to a man who shouted at staff until their hands shook on the keyboard. A man who locked the team WhatsApp group at night and reopened it at 5:30 a.m. with messages like, "If you are not already online, you're already behind." A man who told new mothers they should not expect special treatment because they had chosen to have children. A man who made us work after hours and then instructed us not to record the extra time because head office hates overtime. I had brought emails, screenshots, and a list of dates. Angela looked at them the way someone looks at rain through a window. Unpleasant, but not her problem. "So, what happens now?" I asked. She smiled with practiced softness. "We will have a coaching conversation with Dennis. In the meantime, try to communicate more positively." That was the second time the company made a mistake. The first was assuming exhausted people do not keep records. I had worked at Skirich Customer Solutions for 4 years. We handled outsourced customer care for banks, insurance companies, and online retailers. The work was repetitive, but I was good at it. I could calm angry callers, train new agents, and spot a failing process before the daily report showed it. When Dennis became operations manager, he arrived with a promise to fix weak culture. At first, some people liked him. He spoke about discipline and excellence. He used words like accountability as if he had invented them. But within 2 months, excellence meant fear. He stood behind agents while they answered calls, whispering corrections loudly enough to distract them. He posted individual error rates in the team group with laughing emojis. If someone asked for sick leave, he demanded photographs of medication. If someone asked why Saturday work was not reflected in payroll, he said, "The grateful ones will grow here. The entitled ones will leave." People did leave. Quietly. One by one. I stayed because I was supporting my younger brother through college and because survival can make a person patient longer than dignity should allow. The breaking point came during a product recall campaign. A client had sent urgent scripts late on a Friday, and Dennis told our team we would work the whole weekend. "Overtime?" one agent asked. Dennis smiled. "Opportunity. We work Saturday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. On Monday, he told us not to log the extra hours because the client had not approved the budget. "But we already worked," I said. He turned slowly. "You are a supervisor, Miriam. Supervisors solve problems. They do not create noise." That evening, I downloaded my system login records. Then I asked 3 agents to send me their shift screenshots. 2 were afraid. One, a quiet woman named Jerry, sent hers with a message, "Please do not mention my name unless necessary." I understood. Fear was the office language. I filed my complaint the next week. Angela called me in, listened for 11 minutes, and dismissed me in 5. For a few days afterward, Dennis became almost cheerful. Not kind. Cheerful. There is a difference. Kindness wants you safe. Cheerfulness sometimes wants witnesses. At the next team meeting, he said, "Some people think leadership is abuse when they are asked to perform. Let us be careful not to import weakness into this department." Everyone knew he meant me. Then came the performance warning. It said I had failed to maintain team morale, encouraged resistance to management directives, and demonstrated negative influence. I was given 30 days to improve. The warning was copied to HR. I read it twice, then asked for a meeting with Angela. "This warning came after my complaint," I said. "Miriam, correlation is not retaliation." She looked proud of that sentence. "Are you saying the company has investigated my complaint?" We addressed it informally. "Did you interview the agents?" We did not want to create tension. "Did you review login records?" That level of detail was not necessary. "Did you check unpaid overtime?" She folded her hands. This conversation is becoming adversarial. No. It was becoming useful. That night, I created 4 folders on my laptop: overtime, abuse, retaliation, witnesses. I did not use company equipment. I did not steal confidential client data. I only kept what related to working hours, instructions, HR responses, and my own employment record. The file grew quickly. Screenshots of Dennis instructing staff to report by 6:30 a.m. while official shifts began at 8. Emails saying weekend work was mandatory. Payroll records showing no overtime. The performance warning issued 10 days after my complaint. Messages from agents describing panic attacks, missed childcare pickups, and threats of termination. A photo of the motivational poster from HR because by then even irony felt like evidence. I also did something Dennis never expected. I read the employment handbook. Buried near the back was a grievance procedure that allowed employees to escalate unresolved complaints to the managing director if HR failed to formally investigate within 14 working days. It also stated that retaliation against a complainant was a disciplinary offense. I sent a formal escalation email to the managing director. I attached a summary, not the full file. I requested a written investigation timeline. No response. 5 working days later, I filed a complaint with the labor office. I did not do it dramatically. I filled the forms, attached the documents, and wrote the facts in plain language. Dates, names, hours, amounts. HR response. Retaliation. The officer who received it asked me one question. Do other employees support this? They are afraid, I said. But the records support it. 2 weeks passed. Dennis became bolder. He moved me from supervisor duties to live calls, saying I needed to reconnect with the basics. He changed my shift without notice. He rejected my leave request to attend my brother's graduation. You are on a warning, he said. Consequences are part of growth. That Friday, at 10:18 a.m., the labor inspector arrived. I saw him through the glass doors first. Gray suit, brown folder, calm face. Reception called Angela. Angela came out smiling automatically. Then the inspector introduced himself, and the smile slipped. Dennis was in the operations bay, telling an agent her voice sounded lazy. Angela walked in and whispered something to him. He looked through the glass at me. For once, he had nothing to say. The inspection took 4 hours. They reviewed shift schedules, payroll exports, login records, and internal messages. They asked why weekend work was mandatory but unpaid. They asked why HR had no investigation notes. They asked why a performance warning was issued after a protected complaint. They asked Dennis whether he had instructed staff not to log overtime. He said no. The inspector opened a printed screenshot. Dennis said the message had been misinterpreted. The inspector opened another. By the 3rd screenshot, Dennis stopped speaking unless spoken to. The managing director called me into his office the next Monday. Angela was there. So was Dennis. He looked smaller sitting down. The managing director spoke in a serious voice, the kind executives use when they are trying to sound surprised by a culture they benefited from not seeing. Miriam, we acknowledge that your concerns were not handled with the seriousness they deserved. Angela stared at the table. The company will cooperate fully with the labor office. We are also appointing an external investigator. Your performance warning is withdrawn with immediate effect. I looked at Dennis. He was clenching his jaw so hard I could see the muscle moving. And the overtime? I asked. The room became uncomfortable. We are reviewing payroll exposure, the managing director said. That was not my question. 3 weeks later, every agent on the recall campaign received back pay. Not generous back pay. Not perfect back pay. But money that had been denied until records became harder to ignore than people. Dennis was suspended during the investigation. He never returned. Angela was moved out of employee relations and into recruitment, which felt less like justice and more like rearranging furniture after fire, but it was something. The company introduced a digital overtime approval system. Staff received a new grievance hotline. Managers were required to attend training on workplace bullying, retaliation, and working hours. I did not mistake training for transformation, but I watched agents begin to speak in full sentences again. Jerry came to my desk after the back pay reflected. My daughter needs school shoes, she said quietly. Now I can buy them. That was the moment I almost cried. Not when Dennis was suspended. Not when HR apologized. Not when the warning was withdrawn. It was the shoes. The small proof that abuse is never only emotional. It follows people home. It sits at dinner tables. It turns children into budget items. I stayed at Scareach for another year. People asked why I did not leave immediately. The honest answer is that I wanted to leave on my feet, not from a corner. I wanted Dennis's last action in my story not to be my exit. When I finally resigned, I did it with a clean record, a better job, and a recommendation from the managing director, who had become very respectful after the labor office copied him on letters. On my last day, I passed the HR office. The motivational poster was gone. In its place was a framed policy on complaint handling. I laughed once, softly. People are rarely protected by slogans. They are protected by evidence, process, and the stubborn decision to write down what powerful people hope will remain a feeling. Dennis had called me emotional. He was right about one thing. I was emotional. I was tired. I was angry. I was afraid. I was humiliated. But I was also organized. And in the end, that mattered more.